Welcome to Unscripted Gaming, and my name is Stan.
And I'm Josh.
Hello, everybody. It's been a while.
Hi. We're back.
We are back. We took a small break. E3 is right around the corner. By the time this comes out, E3 will be in either starting right now or starting in 1 or 2 more days. So let's. I don't want to get to E3 yet. I actually wanted to reflect on a specific game. One of my favorite video games on the Game Boy Advance. It's one of the games that I could never bring myself to trade in to a GameStop because it's, even though I haven't touched it in almost a decade, it's just too good. Josh, what game is that?
Well, Stan, that beautiful game is called Golden Sun.
Golden Sun. So I want to do a retrospective where how I feel about Golden Sun, how Josh feels about Golden Sun, how it impacted me as a video gamer, and why I love it so much, and why I still have my copies of it today. Josh, let me tell you about Golden Sun. When the Game Boy Advance was about to come out, way back when, I had like a copy of a Nintendo Power. I rarely got copies of Nintendo Powers, but this copy I had back in the year 2000 or 1999. It showed screenshots for one of the new Nintendo specialized games, and it was Golden Sun. And the screenshots they showed, you're going to be seeing gameplay footage of Golden Sun in the background. It blew me away. Remember, this is going from the Game Boy Color, which is just, just 8 bits barely of low resolution graphics, to this. Granted, a little bit more jaggy textured, especially by today's standards, but this blew me away, absolutely blew me away with the type of modeling and the quality of the sprites that they were about to bring to a handheld system. I was shocked, and I bought it the day it came out, and I was just absolutely blown away. Just took all my expectations and just rose them up and above. It was a beautiful RPG that showed a very simplistic but very unique combat system. This is in the days when I had beaten at least one Final Fantasy game by then. I think it was 7, maybe. No, I think this is before I actually started playing Final Fantasy 7, which was my introduction into the Final Fantasy series, like most people. I've heard of Final Fantasy 7, but I had not played it yet. Remember, this is like 2001. I just did not have a PlayStation then. Before I go on and on, Josh, I want to hear a little bit from you about Golden Sun.
Well, I was in a similar position to you. I actually was a very regular subscriber to Nintendo Power, and
oh yeah, yes you were.
And so I saw those screenshots, but for me, Golden Sun is one of those games that not only was I blown away by the game itself and the story and what was going on and really brought into it, but it was a game that really showed me how special the Game Boy Advance was and the power of the hardware.
Yeah.
And just what you were able to do with it, because the game only came out 5 months or so after the release of the Game Boy Advance. So even just getting to know the Game Boy, really, they were able to do so many things you could never think of on a handheld console at the time.
Absolutely.
The level of color, the level of detail, the level of things that were happening on the screen, the music, the way that it was put together, and just the size of it, able to be fit on one of those little tiny, cards. It was the thing that made the Game Boy Advance make sense for me. It's like, oh, this is what this machine can do. And especially, back in 2001 when this came out, you're just like, holy cow, this is nuts. Plus, on top of that, it was a great game. And it was a fun
really
game.
Great game. Oh my gosh. When I got it, I was just entering middle school, maybe I was still in elementary school. No, I'm sorry, I was just entering middle school back in 2001. And I would play that game on the bus to and from school. It took me like 35 to 40 hours to get through it, but let's go ahead and talk about the story a bit. You start off as this little kid named Isaac and his best friend Garrett. Isaac is one of those silent hero types where your choices are relegated to yes or no in all conversations. It's very simplistic. It kind of gets the job done, and you and Isaac, you find out that you're adepts. You start training to be better adepts. You encounter some enemies named Ceteris and Minority who are looking for the great alchemic power, Golden Sun, to go ahead, and you don't find out what their reasoning for finding the power of Golden Sun. You think they're just evil and they're trying to destroy the world. Then you find out later on. Now, this is like a 14-year-old plot. Spoiler warning, we're going to spoil the shit out of the plots to Golden Sun, The Lost Age, and Golden Sun Dark Dawn. You find out later on that they're not necessarily evil, they're more just anti-heroes. Their village is dying, and they're trying to release the power of Golden Sun to release alchemy back into the world. Your characters, Isaac and Garrett, they believe alchemy will destroy the world. So on and so forth. You go around the entire game. Your whole mission is chasing them to stop them from lighting the lighthouses. There are 4 elemental lighthouses you keep them from lighting. Let me just say that throughout the game, you feel disheartened because each and every time you fail to stop them from lighting the first 2 games, you fail to stop them from lighting the first 2 lighthouses. But that's where Golden Sun. You meet 2 friends along the way. You meet I'm sorry, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna bring up their names. Sheba and Ivan. You meet them along the way, and Isaac is an adept of earth, Garrett is an adept of fire, Ivan is an adept of wind, and Sheba is an adept of, well, you don't get Sheba, I'm sorry, Mia, Sheba comes later. Mia is an adept of ice and water, and she's also specializes in healing. So, you got your RPG character dynamics, and it's a very, very basic game where you're just traveling the world in a very linear path. Actually, the game can be beaten in 20 hours. I know it. I've done it relatively easily, even though the first time will take about maybe 40 hours to go ahead and do it. But what do you think about the very first game? There's really not a lot to it to say.
No, it was straightforward, and it was, at least what I remember, it was pretty approachable. And it was one of those things where, at least at that time period, still growing up and learning games of that nature, it felt big, it felt open, but it also felt like you were always on the right track. It was hard to get too lost and not be making progress. I didn't feel like you needed to spend too much time like grinding to make progress, and you were really focusing on what was happening. And I thought the combat was, I don't want to say unique, but it wasn't. They did some interesting things versus other RPGs like that at the time that kept me engaged in what was happening.
I would say it's fair to call it unique. It's unique in that you get these monsters called Djinn or Djinni that you can find throughout the world, and you can attach them to their character to make your character stronger. The game actually has a very unique class system. If you attached all Earth Djinni to your Earth character, Isaac, he will just get stronger and stronger in his Earth-based magic. But if you start mixing it up, you start attaching wind, water, fire magic to Ivan, even though he's an Earth adept, you start building out different classes, different magic, start min-maxing him to different stats. I've seen online, there are some people that really, really get into min-maxing once you have found all the Djinni throughout the game, and finding out what the best stats for your character and the best magic to use is. I would say, personally speaking, going through the game and doing like small little miniature speed runs through the game, the best way to build out the characters is to keep whatever element that they have with them. There are some weapons that you can find in the game that go ahead and buff your stats, and they do special attacks just randomly, so that's also a booster. And you never truly run out of your magic. It's called synergy or synergy. I never was 100% on the pronunciation of that. And that magic regenerates over time, and you use that magic to go ahead and solve puzzles throughout the game. That's one of the most unique elements about the game, the puzzle solving. It's simplistic in the first game, but it's very satisfying.
Yeah, they mask it in a very approachable way that when you are doing it, you get the sense of what's going on. You're able to get it. You don't feel like you are being pandered to, and they're just giving you this little puzzle to make you feel good. When you do it, you get a sense of accomplishment from it.
So once again, I said before, the plot of the first game is very simple. There are two evil people. Chase them to stop them from lighting two of the four lighthouses of elemental powers, and you kill them in the first game. But they, incidentally, before they die, they light both of the four lighthouses. And then the game ends, and you're probably, as a child like me, thinking, well, what the F? What about the other two lighthouses? What about the other characters? There's like the other characters, Felix's sister, Jenna, Sheba, Kraden. Kraden is like the scholar that had followed you before. Sheba was someone that was kidnapped near the Jupiter Lighthouse. Jenna is Felix's sister that... She joined you in your party briefly at the beginning, but she was kidnapped by Severus and Moriarty, the two evil protagonists. And Felix is one of the people that was abandoned because there was a big storm at the very beginning of the game. So on and so forth. The plot for this game is just it's not complex at all. But the second game comes out 2 years later, Golden Sun: The Lost Age. A little bit of development back history. Golden Sun was meant to be one big game. It was meant to be Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age weren't meant to be separated. But I'm kind of glad they were, because The Lost Age picks up right where the first game left off. And then you have this much bigger, less linear game. You get a ship in Golden Sun: The Lost Age. As opposed to just playing as Felix, Garrett, Ivan, and Mia. No, you get a... it's like halfway through the game, you get a ship that lets you sail around the world as the other characters. You play as Felix, you play as Jenna, you play as Sheba, you play as this new character, Pyres, who's one of the... he's like from the Lemurian Society, a Lemurian Society. It's kind of like Atlantis, so he's really adept in water-type powers. But with the ship that you get in the game, it opens up. It eventually, I'm going to give this away, it eventually at the end of the game becomes an airship, which really opens up the exploration of the game. And the other characters that you get throughout the game, they eventually join your party. The characters from the first game join your party in the second game. And so it's really cool how in the second game you have this 8-player party. And you know what the best part about this 8-player party is, Josh? Go ahead and guess what the best part is.
Well, it definitely wouldn't be that you would use all 8 at the same time, would it be?
It is! If you're 4 characters, you always start a battle with 4 characters. If the 4 characters you started a battle with all fall, your other 4 characters in your back slot jump right in, ready to fight. You know how many RPGs legitimately do that? I can't name any. When I was a kid and I saw that actually happen, like, oh no, my starting 4 is about to go down. Boom! It actually shows an animation of the other 4 characters jump in. Why don't other RPGs do that? If I had $1 for every Final Fantasy game that didn't do that, I would have $15.
Because, Stan, if I was in a fight and you were standing nearby and I went down, you would let that person that beat me, you would just let him go because that was fair. You definitely wouldn't step in.
No, yeah, you're in a fight to the death. You definitely wouldn't try to help your buddies.
No, not at all.
F that noise. The second game picks up exactly where the first game left off. The mechanics are still the same. The puzzles that you use your synergy, it's a type of magic. They just call it synergy, psychic energy. The puzzles are a little bit more difficult, which is more pleasing. It's a lot more open-ended, so you can go explore the entire world. You can't explore, due to the limitations of the Game Boy Advance cartridge, you can't explore the map where the first game was. That's disappointing. It is very disappointing. But, there it is. If you want to see what the map of what the first game looked like, I guess you have to play the first game, but it would have been cool. Still, just a very, very epic game. And can we talk about the music real quick of both games? I opened the podcast with the music to Golden Sun because I love the music to Golden Sun. It is so epic for a Game Boy Advance cartridge, and I feel like a young kid every time I hear it again because this music defines my childhood. If I could go ahead and just kind of geek out for just a minute.
You do.
Just your thoughts. I'm kind of talking a lot.
Partly because you're just you're saying everything that I would say because I remember just investing so much time into it and being just blown away by everything about it, and I'm fairly certain that on my cellular mobile internet slab, I have a few Golden Sun songs on my my little game playlist there, because they it's just so good. Every like color, the gameplay, the story, the scope, the music.
I beat the first Golden Sun. I think to date I've beaten it about 5 times, maybe more. Just to tell you how much investment I have into that one RPG. And Golden Sun 2, it let you carry over your character data from part 1 over into part 2. Very few video games let you do that. They have in mind that there's a sequel in mind. You have a couple different methods to do it. You had the password system, which was obnoxious, and that's the way I typically did it. It meant that you went ahead and wrote down, it was like the angry video game would get pissed at this. It was like 7 pages of 20 character each numbers and letters for your password. But it was all the data from Golden Sun 1 that was getting transferred over to Golden Sun 2. Or you could use a link cable, but that involved you to have 2 Game Boy Advances, a copy of Golden Sun 1, and your copy of Golden Sun 2, and then you had to link them together. Yeah, that's the thing that most people just didn't do. I've tried it once. It's actually more difficult than you think to get that to work. I've normally just gone with the password version. And I've beaten Golden Sun 2 twice, just because it's a much bigger game, but I enjoyed both times that I had beaten them. Let's move on from Golden Sun 2. Long story short, you eventually stop one of the alchemists named Alex, who's actually Mia's brother, you try to stop him from unleashing alchemy upon the world. Actually, throughout the course of Golden Sun 2, The Lost Age, you find out that unleashing alchemy upon the world is the only way to save the world. This is the type of world where alchemy used to be a thing and the world is completely flat. You can actually sail around on the continent or past the continents and see the world does actually have an end point. There's points where the water is just kind of perpetually falling off. And you actually do unleash alchemy onto the world to keep the world from crumbling. That's why in the very first game, Sadaros and Minrati were trying to unleash alchemy, because their town where they live is on the edge of the world, and I can imagine it's very disheartening to see pieces of your town crumble into the abyss, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So let's move on to the third game. Golden Sun 1 and 2, excellent games. They're out on the Nintendo eShop, please, if you have not tried them and you've got a lot of time for RPGs, buy them. Dark Dawn for the DS. A game that was stuck in development hell for 6 years until it finally came out, and I played it. I bought it the day it came out. Obviously, I'm a huge Golden Sun fan. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I don't think I'll ever revisit Dark Dawn ever again. I say this.
I've never played it, so I have no understanding of the game, no frame of reference. So this one is all on you.
Yeah, I bought it the day it came out. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm taking the lead for those you Josh fans out there. I don't think Josh has, as he just mentioned, played Dark Dawn a lot. I played Dark Dawn once. It was a lot longer than I thought. The Golden Sun games before were about 40-hour journeys. This one, 80 hours if it's a minute. And it overstays its welcome quite a bit. There's a lot of backtracking you have to do in this game, and there's a lot of back and forth puzzles that really don't lead to the end quest. And much like in Golden Sun fashion, this game ends on a gigantic cliffhanger. And the sad thing is about Golden Sun games ending on the cliffhanger, Part 1 ended on a cliffhanger, but you knew there was a lot more to the story. Part 2 ends on a cliffhanger, but it didn't need to, and now there's a question of if there will ever be a Part 4 to hopefully just kind of finish this series off. Golden Sun Dark Dawn is about you're Isaac's son and you're Garrett's son. There's a lot of characters that you're going to meet that have had kids, and that's really, really cool because this game takes place about 30 years in the future, and it's really, really epically cool to see a lot of the characters that you met from the previous games all grown up, how the world has changed after 30 years. It's really, really cool. But the game itself, here's how the story sums up. You activate 2 alchemy machines, a forge and a well, and the journey to activate those is like 40 hours of the game in and of itself. You meet another 8 characters along the way, Kraden is still in your party. The game is in full 3D, by the way. It looks really, really epic. And then you're trying to stop the morning moon. No, the grave eclipse. I'm sorry. You're trying to stop the grave eclipse from happening. The grave eclipse eventually does happen. And the only way to prevent the grave eclipse... The grave eclipse is like this evil alchemy that descends upon the world. You have to use what's called the Apollo's lens. This one's a lot more complicated and on all honesty, a lot more verbose of a story. It starts getting to some really bad Final Fantasy trappings where it becomes bigger than itself, and it's not the type of game that needs to be bigger than itself. There are games that can pull that off. This is not one of them. Final Fantasy Tactics, that's a game about a story being bigger than itself. This one, you're a bunch of kids trying to save the world. Don't get too full of yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Dark Dawn ends with a cliffhanger saying that, oh shit, we forgot about these dark vortexes that keep spawning everywhere. And then there's a dark vortex at the very end of the game, about the size of a small planet, that spawned near your home. Game ends. Gigantic cliffhanger. How are you going to deal with that? Well, we don't know. This game, Dark Dawn, came out in 2010. We don't know if there will ever be another Golden Sun game. There's not much more I can say about Dark Dawn besides I think Dark Dawn actually ended up killing the Golden Sun series just because of how mediocre, to me, it kind of really is. But that's our retrospective into it. If you want to play Dark Dawn, it's not hard to find. You can go to Amazon and find it for real cheap. Heck, after I beat it, I traded in my copy to GameStop. It's the only Golden Sun game I never found that I needed to have the copy of. The head developer of Camelot and the lead director of Golden Sun said if there was enough interest in Golden Sun that they would bring the game back. And I have seen fan-made petitions to go ahead and bring Golden Sun back. And the one I saw recently had like 7,000 signatures to make the final sequel to Golden Sun 4. So I'm gonna be honest, I played this game like 4 years ago. I just don't think it's coming. I don't think there's gonna ever be any more Golden Suns. But tell you what, it's a fun series for what it is. The first two, you could ignore the third one. Just pretend it doesn't exist. In my opinion, it's gonna set you up for failure if you try to play the third one.
So basically, stick with the first two.
Yeah, stick with the first two. Don't play the third one, because when you play the third one and you get to that cliffhanger ending, you're like, well, now I want more. Well, here's the bad thing. There might not ever be more.
Yeah.
Here's me also voting that Isaac makes it into Smash Brothers, but that's another podcast for another time.
Well, that's how... Yeah, we'll see. That'd be nice. He was an assist trophy at one point, but
Yeah.
maybe he could be a character.
Yeah, here's hoping. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this small little retrospective. This has been Unscripted Gaming. Once again, my name is Stan.
And I'm Josh.
If you guys want to go ahead and share in the conversation, tell us your thoughts if you've ever played Golden Sun. Like, comment, subscribe to our videos. Follow us on Facebook. Go ahead and hit us up on Twitter. We love responding to your tweets and Facebook conversations. And I hope you guys have yourselves a fine night.
Peace.